Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 298 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about what's going on between Klay Thompson and the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson is inarguably one of the best shooting guards of his era and of all time. His career averages are 19.6 points per game, and he's a career 41% free-point shooter and has formed one half of the Splash Brothers, one of the best backcourt duos ever. He's a 5-time NBA All-Star and 4-time NBA champ. This season has been a bit of a struggle for Klay. He's shooting 37% from free, a career low, and is averaging 17 points, his lowest since his sophomore season. And it's starting to affect his playing time. Recently, Thompson has been put on the bench during crunch time, and to make matters worse, the shooting guard is in a contract year. So how all of this plays out will be fascinating. Will the Warriors extend the guard for all he's done for the organization? Will he take a team-friendly discount to remain with the Warriors, or will both sides move on? And I would say I don't understand giving him a lot of money at this point, and I think that's the direction the team will go. They already gave Draymond Green a massive contract extension. The Warriors clearly want to keep the band together. I believe that's a massive, massive mistake. And if you're wondering why the Warriors are keeping Draymond and Klay Thompson on the team, my theory is it's because it's what Steph Curry wants. NBA teams give their number one player what he wants, and clearly Steph Curry still wants to play basketball with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. It's the same reason I don't like LeBron James all the time, because he wants to play with veteran players he's already played with over younger stars. The Warriors have chosen these older stars over guys like Jordan Poole, and say what you want about Jordan Poole. I know he's having a terrible season with Washington, but that scenario made absolutely no sense. Draymond Green is the one who punched him in the face, and Jordan Poole gets sent away, and Draymond Green is the one who gets a contract extension from the team. The moment that happened, I knew something was up with the Golden State Warriors. I mean, right now, currently, the second best player on the Warriors is Jonathan Kuminga. What happens if the Warriors give Klay Thompson a boatload of money and they can't end up re-signing a guy like Kuminga? I know the franchise isn't afraid to spend money. I just don't like the direction that it's going, where they're paying these older guys who are close to washed up over these young promising stars who can still develop into something special. I believe Bob Myers stepped down as president of the Golden State Warriors because he didn't want to make these difficult decisions of what to do with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. That's why he's now working for ESPN, and I get it. You don't want to be the guy who kicks Klay Thompson out of town, but the front office has to make those tough decisions, because Steph Curry isn't going to kick out the other Splash Brother. The Golden State Warriors front office has to be the one to do it, and clearly, at least right now, they're not willing to do it. Once upon a time, my Boston Celtics were in a similar situation. They had Kevin Garnett, they had Ray Allen, they had Paul Pierce, they had Doc Rivers as their head coach. They could have kept the band together. Instead, Ray Allen goes to Miami, he signs on his own, he leaves the team, and then they trade away Garnett and Paul Pierce to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, they could have kept those two players together and still competed to make the postseason, but they knew that wasn't good for the future. Just because it's okay for the now, I mean, teams are supposed to be building towards something, and the Warriors don't seem like they're building towards anything special. Like back in the heyday, because they had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and they developed Draymond Green, you knew they were building towards something special, and they became that something. They became the modern basketball dynasty because you were building towards something. You had something to look forward to. The Golden State Warriors, other than Kuminga, have nothing to look forward to on their roster. I know what Steph Curry is at this point. He's great. He's still great. I know what Klay Thompson is, and he's getting worse. I know what Draymond is. He's getting worse. The Celtics brilliantly traded Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett when they still had value. Draymond Green no longer has that value to get really good draft picks, and Klay Thompson clearly right now doesn't have that value to get draft picks. But the Celtics trade away Pierce and Garnett, and eventually those draft picks become Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. In the moment, it's really tough to trade away future Hall of Fame players. But if what you get back are future All-Star players, it kind of makes up for it, don't you think? And I just don't understand how we got here with the Golden State Warriors, because during their last NBA title run, they had younger players. They had Andrew Wiggins. He was the second best player of that NBA Finals. Now, he isn't that same guy. They had Jordan Poole. They traded him away. Now they have Jonathan Kuminga. I thought the next core should have been Wiggins, Poole, and Kuminga, and then you build around Steph Curry. You let Draymond Green go away. You kind of let Klay Thompson go away, but the Warriors are keeping the band together, and I think it's the thing that's holding them back, because Steph Curry is still special night in and night out. Klay Thompson isn't. Draymond Green isn't. Here's what Warriors coach Steve Kerr told reporters about Klay Thompson this season. Quote, "This is a season where he has had a lot of ups and downs. It's not easy for a guy who's been so good and a Hall of Fame player to deal with injuries, and it's never easy for any player getting older, but he's mentally tough." I have no issue with Klay Thompson still being on the Golden State Warriors. My issue is they still need him to be the old Klay Thompson for them to be a championship contender, and they're almost living in this little bubble where they believe that that can still happen, and I know deep down they know it's not going to happen. Klay Thompson isn't that same guy anymore. He's been through a boatload of injuries. He is getting older. All he can do with the basketball to be effective is to shoot three-pointers at a high rate, and he's not doing that. Remember, this is the guy who scored like 60-something points against the Chicago Bulls with 8 total dribbles. That's his specialty. If he's not doing that anymore, what use is he? Not to mention, an underrated aspect of his game is he used to be a lights-out defender. Klay Thompson used to be a premier perimeter defender. I used to love to watch him play defense. He's no longer that guy as well. I think there are 2 ways that modern dynasties in sports usually end. The first is the common way, that the guys move on. Michael Jordan retires. Scottie Pippen gets traded. The Chicago Bulls break up. Dennis Rodman gets traded. They're no longer on the team. That's the normal way. The other way that not enough people talk about is signing your veteran players to massive extensions when they're no longer the same players. That's a mistake because the team isn't improving. They're just relying on these players who are no longer their Hall of Fame selves. The Warriors need Draymond to be the old Draymond. Well, guess what? He isn't. The Warriors need Klay Thompson to be the old Klay Thompson. He isn't. I've seen this in other sports as well. The Philadelphia Phillies made it to 2 World Series. They won 1, and then they signed guys to massive contract extensions. Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, you name them, they signed them all, and then those guys got older, and they weren't the same players. Front offices are supposed to walk this line between signing guys to contracts that they've earned and still signing really good players. The Draymond Green extension was one of the worst extensions in all of basketball because we all knew that Draymond Green was a nutcase. Then he gets $100 million, and then he gets suspended earlier this year. And not enough people are talking about how big of a mistake that was. Say what you will about Jordan Poole. It's not about Jordan Poole. It's about why is Draymond Green still on the Golden State Warriors. I know all the good he's done for the organization. I know he won Defensive Player of the Year. He's not even half the player he used to be for the Warriors. And now Klay Thompson is turning into something that's not half as good as he used to be. So are the Warriors going to make that exact same mistake? They need to do something. And I feel bad for Klay because I think he's the one who deserves that contract that Draymond got. But now you can't pay both Draymond and Klay, and unfortunately, they already paid Draymond. I've heard NBA analysts say that they feel bad for Steph Curry because he now has to carry the Golden State Warriors night in and night out because Draymond and Klay are no longer the same players they used to be. I don't feel bad for Steph Curry because I feel like Steph Curry pick this. He wants this to happen. He wants his friends and teammates to get paid. There is no world where if Steph Curry doesn't want Draymond and Klay Thompson on the Golden State Warriors, that they are on the Golden State Warriors. He wants this. He chose this. That's why I don't feel bad for Steph Curry. I think he's an all-time great player. I don't think he should be playing with Draymond and Klay Thompson as key contributors anymore. But he chose this fate, and now he has to live with it. Sadly, this situation is starting to gain traction because Klay Thompson is outwardly upset about not playing in crunch time. Well, you're not playing in crunch time because you're no longer that Klay Thompson. And it's a really hard thing for stars to realize that they're no longer stars, especially in basketball. It's really hard for a star player to all of a sudden become a role player. I mean, look at the list of guys who just couldn't do it. Allen Iverson tried to come off the bench, but he's Allen Iverson. Everyone has eyes on him. He's too much of an attention grabber to be a role player on the Memphis Grizzlies. So it didn't work out because he's Allen Iverson. And I feel the same way towards Klay Thompson. I mean, all eyes are on him when he's on that court. We're all expecting him to be the old Klay Thompson. We're not expecting him to be efficient. We're not expecting him to be Kyle Korver. We're expecting him to be Klay Thompson, the guy who can completely take over a basketball game. And sadly, he's no longer that guy, and he's just now realizing that. I just look at the Golden State Warriors, and I don't see a vision for the next 3 years. We don't know how much longer Steve Kerr is going to be their head coach. We don't know how much longer Klay Thompson is going to be on the team. We know they're going to have Draymond. We know they're going to have Steph Curry, but that's not enough in the year 2024. There are big question marks when it comes to the Warriors. Are they going to allow Jonathan Kuminga to be a building block towards the future, or are they going to do the same thing to him that they did to Jordan Poole, which is ship him away when he's not getting along with the veteran stars who have won NBA championships together? The Warriors are a perfect example of how this league has become a players' league. Like, the players on the Warriors are clearly running the Warriors. It's why I believe that Klay Thompson will be given way more money than he should be by the Warriors, because I think ultimately Steph Curry and Draymond are going to tell the Warriors, you need to re-sign Draymond to keep us happy. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't have the answer to that. What I do know is it's not good for the future of the Golden State Warriors to have two overpriced veterans who are no longer the same players they used to be. Yes, it's good for the fan base. You can talk about Klay, you can talk about Draymond, you can still be fans of them. They're still good basketball players. The problem is the Warriors are paying them to be special basketball players, and they're no longer that. I've heard former Celtics player Danny Ainge talk about how the Celtics kept Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish together for far too long. It can happen. Winning championships does not mean you get a lifetime contract with the team. Sometimes it's not in the best interest of the team to keep these Hall of Fame players on the team. I get it. We all want to live in a world where every player ends their career with that one team. We want to see Klay Thompson end his career with the Warriors. Yes, I'd like to see that happen if he became a role player, if he became a veteran minimum type of player. I don't want Klay Thompson to get a max contract extension from the Golden State Warriors, because I don't think that's what's in the best interest of that team, for him to be one of their highest paid players. To be one of their highest paid players, to me, means you're one of their best players. And right now, Klay Thompson is clearly not one of their best players. He is being benched in crunch time. So to hear that, and then for this offseason to come and it get announced that he's getting $100 million, that doesn't sit right with me. That's not what sports is about. Sports isn't just about what you've done. It's about what you're going to do. And I'll say this, I'll give Klay Thompson the rest of this season to figure it out, because what we're going to find out is if this is just a really bad stretch for Klay Thompson, or is this who he is going to be moving forward? And if the answer is this is who he is going to be moving forward, I find it ridiculous that there's even a chance that the Warriors are going to give him a lot of money this offseason. Again, if Klay Thompson wants to take a team-friendly deal to remain with the Warriors for like $10 million a year, absolutely do it. But if he's going to be somewhere near the max or that $100 million that Draymond got, I think that's absurd, and that's going to create the end of the Warriors dynasty, the fact that they have two overpriced former stars. I know some people will say, well, they're keeping that championship culture together. That doesn't matter when you're not winning basketball games. Basketball isn't about a winning culture. It's about actually winning. And the Warriors won all of those championships because of all that talent they had. Remember that team where they had Steph Curry, Klay Thompson in his prime, Draymond Green in his prime, Kevin Durant in his prime? That's why they were a super team. Right now, the Warriors have 3 of those same players, and they're no longer viewed as a super team. Steph Curry is still clearly a top 5 NBA player. Draymond Green is not a top 50 player in the NBA right now, and Klay Thompson is clearly not a top 50 player in the NBA right now. They're no longer in that conversation. They're no longer a super team. They're no longer competing for championships, which is something that team is trying to do because they spend a boatload of money. That's what I find so weird about the Warriors, is they're spending all of this money on this roster, yet it's not very good. And in all likelihood, it's not going to get better. Klay Thompson isn't going to get better. We know what he is at this point, and it's not the old Klay Thompson. His situation isn't going to get much better. Draymond Green's situation is not going to get much better. He's still a decent defender, but they need him to be that defensive player of the year, and they need Klay Thompson to be one of the best free-point shooters of all time. It is interesting to think where Klay Thompson would go if he's no longer with the Golden State Warriors, because back in the day, we would all have these conversations of, would you want Klay Thompson to be the best player on your team? And I would think about it, and it would be interesting. Clearly, right now, he's not on that level. He needs to go to a place where he's not being relied on. You cannot have a situation where Klay Thompson is your best offensive player. So I look at these teams. The Lakers make a lot of sense. They have LeBron. They have Anthony Davis. Have Klay Thompson come off the bench, shoot some threes. I think that could really work out. He needs to be in a situation where they don't need him to be a 15 to 20 point scorer a game. He can be just a situational bench player who hits some clutch threes every now and again. Because I do look at all of that championship experience as something special. It's just not worth $20 million anymore. If you're not hitting threes at the same rate you once were, you're not worth that kind of money. So that's why if he's not going to take a discount to stay with the Warriors, which I believe he won't take a discount, ultimately, if Klay Thompson remains with the Warriors, I'm not going to like the contract that he gets because it will be somewhere near that $100 million that Draymond got. And I just think that both of those contracts would just be pure nonsense at this point. If the Warriors want to win another NBA championship, which they clearly do, they need to pair Steph Curry with another star player they can rely on. It's not Andrew Wiggins at this point like I thought it was going to be. It's not Klay Thompson. It's clearly not Draymond Green. Yet they still have Draymond at a contract I don't agree with. They might be giving Klay Thompson a contract I don't agree with. So I don't see the situation getting better. And that's fine. If that's what the Warriors want to become, that they just keep this trio together for the next 5 years and we have a farewell tour, that's great. That sounds great. I'm sure the Warriors fans will love that. But you know what the Warriors fans loved more? When you were competing and winning NBA championships. You were the premier franchise in the NBA, and now you're becoming an afterthought. And we're talking about the decline of your former star players when we should be talking about the rise of your younger stars. That's what I was excited about. I was excited about what the future would look like with Jordan Poole. I'm kind of excited about what the future looks like with Jonathan Kuminga. But instead, I'm talking about how Klay Thompson is declining like every basketball player does. They decline. The Warriors should see the writing on the wall. They should have seen this coming. They should have had a plan. Instead, we're talking about the decline of Klay Thompson and how that's affecting the team, because the sad part of this is the Warriors are still relying on Klay Thompson, and the Warriors might have to give Klay Thompson some money this offseason because, again, they want to keep the band together. It's the wrong strategy, and it's why I believe Bob Myers is no longer running the Warriors, because he could care less about keeping the band together. I believe it's Steph Curry who wants to keep this ride going. It's Steph Curry who wants to play with Klay, and he wants to play with Draymond. Well, this is what you get. A team that's barely in the playoffs right now that needs Steph Curry to hit miraculous buzzer beaters just for you to win basketball games. Like most NBA fans, I've always liked Klay. I root for Klay, but he's not the old Klay Thompson. And I hope his career gets back on track, but I don't see it happening with the Warriors right now. I think the Warriors are going to have a really tough decision this offseason, and I hope they make the right one. If they keep Klay Thompson, I hope it's at an affordable price. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.